Hello, YouTubers! It's time for another report with some new records from my collection. And this warm summer, I haven't been buying that much, but I've still managed to get a hold of some really nice records. So let's just have a look at them, shall we? Well, first of all, I've been a great fan of the Beautiful South for a long time. And I talked about that in a previous video when I showed the Painting It Red reissue. I also know that this autumn the album Meow from 1994 will be reissued, and I'm quite sure I will try to get hold of that. But in later years, Paul Heaton and Jackie Abbott have been making some great albums together, and silly me, I haven't really noticed it. But recently I realized, well, they're not just performing together again, they're making albums. They made 3 albums, and I've ordered them on vinyl. Not sure when I will get them, but one of them I received. It's their latest, Crooked Calypso, and it's from last year, so it's fairly new. I've been listening to some of their songs on YouTube already, and I have to say they're still going strong. Well, perhaps even this might. Well, some of you might not agree with this. Perhaps even better than back then in the 90s, because, well, Paul Heaton as a songwriter has matured. He seems, I don't know, less bothered with other stuff in his life. And the songs are very clever. They are extremely well written, and the arrangements are superb. And this album is filled with gems. And I've heard some of the tracks from their 2 previous albums that I'm still trying to get hold of. I've ordered them, but I don't know when I'll get them. All of the tracks that I've heard have been really great pop songs, and to be quite honest, I get inspired as a musician and as a hobby songwriter hearing the skills of Paul Heaton. I've been an admirer of him for, well, over 20 years, 25 years at least, so I'm so happy that he's active out there making great pop songs today. And I'm also happy that he's cooperating with a wonderful singer, Jackie Abbott. It's match made in heaven, a musical match made in heaven. Right, what more? Well, I had some visitors some weeks ago, and I was then, I know, because they knew that I was interested in vinyl records. Maybe really not the genre or the kind of vinyl records that I'm interested in, but they gave me a nice little pile anyway. And even though some of them might not really be what I look for, I'm not that much into Soviet pressings or Barbra Streisand, but still I got some interesting records, and this is one of them. And this is Alla Pugacheva, her debut album. For those of you who don't know about Alla Pugacheva, then you're not Russian, because she's probably the most famous Russian singer, and she became a bit famous in Sweden in the 80s because the Swedish radio journalist and TV journalist Jakob Dahlin, who was a great fan of Russian culture and often went to the Soviet Union to gather impressions, and also I know from Russian friends that he was actually a bit famous back there in Soviet Union as well. We only thought that he was famous here in Sweden, but anyway, he brought over this big Russian singer and diva in the 80s, and to be quite honest, maybe she was a bit past her prime. She's still active today, still performing, and still what we would, well, she's a bit of an icon back in Russia now. This was her first album from 1978 or 77 actually, and it's really really good. It mixes some symphonic rock with folk elements, and um, it is actually much more progressive than you might expect, especially if you heard later more pop-oriented releases with her. There's one big problem when it comes to collecting Russian albums. This album was issued with 140, 50, 90 billion different sleeves. It seems like every different pressing plant had a different sleeve for the bloody record. And actually, the original record was a double album. This is a single album, so they've just taken one of them and made a reissue the year after the original issue. And then there were reissue, almost all of them with different sleeves. And when it finally was issued on CD many years later, it had yet another sleeve. So you really have to check the songs to know that you don't buy the same record twice. I didn't have this. I only had one Alla Pugacheva record before, and I think it's her second or third album. The other ones are very good, actually. She's a great singer here. Then maybe a bit too much cigarettes, vodka, maybe men, but put a bit of a rustier feeling to her voice. Still not bad though, but still, this I think she was as best when she was really young, and this is really good. Thank you very much. Thank you for that gift. Okay. Yeah, you might remember that I, in the previous video, talked about a live album with an unofficial live album by Paul Simon from a radio concert in Tokyo. And I was so disappointed about the poor sound quality, because it sounded like they have taken a really crap cassette tape and used it as the base for the whole quite luxurious vinyl issue. I mean, thick 180 gram vinyl, big fold out cover with lots of text and nice pictures and so on. And then it sounded so poorly. So at the same time as I ordered that album, I had ordered the complete unplugged concert, also an unofficial issue, but this is issued by Big Car. I don't know anything about them, but it's not Parachute who made the other one. But when I had my serious doubt about the sound quality of this album as well before I actually got it, so I didn't expect too much. But luckily, this has a great sound, and it is from his MTV Unplugged concert from 1992. Complete with false starts and encores and so on. And the two first songs, they had problems with feedback in, I think, in the one of the guitars, maybe even Paul Simon's guitars, and they redid the two first songs at the end of the concert. So what we actually saw when we saw it on TV, we saw the end of the concert first. So, but this is, all in all, with all the talking and all the babbling, all right, they have to change reels, so blah blah blah. So it's very nice, and this was definitely worth having. Back to form. So this, the Tokyo concert, avoid it. But this, great quality, even if it's not an official issue. So yeah. Right. Oh yes, my friends, I have to show you this. I'm so happy when my old CD favorites get reissued on vinyl. It's really weird. Like back in the old days, we were so happy. Oh, this old vinyl favorite is being reissued on CD. Now it's the opposite. So I'm going to show you this one. It is, what is it called? Yeah, forgot it for a second. Reverence by Richard Bona from 2001, or the CD and the recording is from 2001. I remember when I first saw Richard Bona, it was on TV, a recording of a concert at the Stockholm Jazz Festival. It must have been recorded in 2000, but I may have seen it in 2001 or something like that. And I was amazed by his skills on the fretless bass, and also by how well this 5-man band sounded almost like a big band, and how well they varied from playing jazz, like big band jazz, to samba, to bossa nova, to Afrobeat, to beautiful ballads, and some fusion. I don't know if I said that. All in one concert. So back then, this was before internet for me, so it took some time for me to find his album. Or I think I just ordered from a company that sent out catalogs and had it. Anyway, I found it and I loved it since then. It's such a warm, mellow sound, so good songs, and he's not just a very good songwriter and bass player, he's also a wonderful singer. And I do not know, I do not understand the lyrics, but from what I've learned, the lyrics are quite a lot about, well, his family, about love, about his parents, things that are close to his heart. I mean, we have to like a humble guy like that, who do not just sing songs about sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And there's a clip on YouTube, by the way, when he performs together with Bobby McFerrin. He on the bass and vocals, and Bobby on, well, vocals and, well, this and that. Where they just play together for around 10 minutes, improvising all the time, and they are having so fun together. You really get back. If you ever lost your love for music, it will return when you see that clip. So if you search Richard Bona and Bobby McFerrin, you'll find it. And this is, by the way, a very good reissue, a vinyl reissue, a thick, lovely, fat sound, and so lovely to just surround yourself with the music that you love, and that's what I love doing. All right, let's hurry on. I've babbled now for 12 minutes here. Okay. Okay, some quickies. Some records that I found at a local flea market. This is a live album with Uppsala legend Ove Thörnqvist and the female entertainer Lill Lindfors and singer, and yeah. It is from their show 1965 at Börsen in Sweden, Hamburger Börs, Jo jag tackar jag. It is quite rare to find in such a good condition, and I found it at a flea market for almost nothing. So I was very happy to find it. Ove Thörnqvist was, well, he claims anyway that he was one of the first stand-up comedians in Sweden, because he did a kind of stand-up comedian routine back in the 60s, while almost nobody else did it back then. If you could call it stand-up comedy by today's standards, not really sure, but still. And he's still active. He was competing last year in the trying to get the Swedish entry for the Eurovision Song Contest. He's 80, I think he's 89 years old now. He's born 1929, the same year as my late wonderful grandmother, who passed away in 2010. So he's old, but he still got it. And also, many would claim that he made the first European rock record, because in Swedish he recorded a rock song back as early as 1955, even if he called it boogie, but it sounds more like what we would call rock and roll back then. And that was early for Europe and even earlier for Sweden. So, alright, glad to find that. Ove and Lill. Right. Over to a record that I didn't know anything about when I saw it. I just got very confused. I almost said, yeah, confused and curious. I meant to say curious, but I ended up saying confused, but I was confused too. This is Joe and the Hornets, Move Your Body. And this, of course, looks like a really old vinyl album, even if we turn it around. I mean, look at the This is like the old, really old records used to feel and look, and it also has a very lovely record label, if you can see it, Hornet Records. But this is from 2014, and it is a local Swedish rockabilly dash rhythm and blues group, because they mix the rockabilly sounds with also tracks that sound a bit like early Rolling Stones, and they do it very well. I mean, the recording quality is quite crude. It's not what you would call hi-fi, but they play really good and danceable rock and roll rockabilly music. And in this quite expensive vinyl edition, because it's thick 180 gram vinyl as well. I cannot imagine that this is that easy to get hold of even now, just 4 years later. Maybe it's still on sale, but I can imagine that it was made in a quite low quantity of copies. But I found it, and I didn't know what it was. I bought it because I was both confused and curious, and I'm going to keep it because I thought it was very good. There were some other albums also there in that I found, that I bought because I was both confused and curious. I didn't know what it was. Not all of them are staying in my collection, so to speak, but this definitely has a place. Joe and the Hornets. Right. Oh yeah, I have to show you this one. This is really nothing special, but I found it, and it is a Italian compilation album with Chubby Checker on the budget label Success, that was active in the 80s and early 90s. I'm quite sure many of you saw these on CD with this label, this Success label, both on cassettes and CDs, and as you can see on vinyl. Nothing really special about the quality, but I found this, it was still sealed, so I thought, well, why not? I don't have any Chubby Checker album from as far as I could remember. I remembered correctly. And still, I like this simple songs like Let's Twist Again and the Hucklebuck and Pony Time and The Fly and stuff like that. So it's a nice album. It's taken from old recordings, of course. The quality you could expect, but nothing wrong with it. But it was fun to find it because it was still sealed. As you see, it's not still sealed anymore because I buy records to unseal them and play them. Yeah, not to invest in them. Okay. Yeah, I should show you this also. This is a recording of Hugo Alfvén's Midsummer Vigil. Midsummer's Vigil. Midsommarvaka in Swedish. It's one of the it's an early album, early recording. It's from 1954, and what's so typical about it, or what's so special about it, is that this is recorded with Hugo Alfvén as the conductor, the composer of this classical piece of music. He was very old back then, but still. It's on the Swedish label, Swedish Society Discophile. It's a, for its time, luxurious issue, 10-incher from 1954. It's in great condition, so I didn't have it, although I had heard about it, and I think I might even had a later 12-inch pressing of this, but now I got this. I think this is the original one. I like this when it's have these like sewn seams to keep off the split seams, or the seams from split. They should have continued doing this, sewing the edges of the record sleeves with thread like this. No more split seams then. Okay. Yeah, I also, for not not a lot of money, bought famous live album by the Swedish rock hero Jerry Williams, that I talked about earlier. Live Version from 1990. Um, he does a very good take on, well, among other songs, the Swedish song Vintersaga. He rarely sang in Swedish, but when he did, people listened. This is not a rare album, but since I realized that some of his albums were actually worth having, and I thought I should get this because it has this famous version of Vintersaga on it, the live version, and so I got it. And the rest of the album is very good too. I mean, great musicians, great vocals, and good sound quality. So, not a rare record though. It's quite easy to find, and I didn't have to pay that much for it. Okay, the final record I'm going to no, I have two more records to show. I'm just going to show you this. This is a record, the Robert W. Morgan Special of the Week. Robert W. Morgan was an American DJ, who a radio disc jockey, who had his own show in the, I think, late 70s and 80s. I saw some records out for auction with different themes on, and from what I can see, it's a complete radio show with even a paper where you can read about everything that's in it. The artists that were offered weren't that really interesting for me, so I got this that was Robert W. presents the best of 1981. So lots of different artists and famous tracks from 1981. No, I'm not really sure. This is quite rare to find. I've never seen it before, like this radio transcript record. Interesting to find, and when I listened to it, it was just like listening to an American radio show from 1981. 1981 may not have been the most interesting year music-wise, at least not according to my taste. So wasn't too exciting. A bit interesting, but maybe not that exciting. So, but fun anyway. Right, the final one. It's a compilation album with the French singer Michel Delpech or Delpech. I'm not really sure about how to pronounce it. I knew about him before, but the only song that I was really aware of was his big hit here in Sweden in the early 70s, or I think it was a big hit almost everywhere. Pour un flirt, you know, la 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 la, and of course that's nice, but maybe not that interesting. But I found this album with him. I didn't realize that it was a compilation album until when I started looking closer at it at home and started listening to it. But I got really in love with the great French songs on this album. The original of the Jonathan King song "When I Was a Star" was on this album. Where is it? Quand j'étais chanteur. And I later checked the video and the lyrics on internet, and it was more like the Jonathan King version was more like a direct translation of the French original. But I like Michel Delpech much more as an artist and singer than Jonathan King. But still, I like the song "When I Was a Star." I've even made a Swedish version of it myself many years ago, even though I haven't made it public. But I didn't know it was a French song. Quand j'étais chanteur. Pardon my French, it's horrible, I know. But that wasn't the only song that I liked on this album. He had many great songs that were hits in France. So I was happy to find it and listen to it. Alas, he passed away quite recently. I think, was it last year or maybe 2 years ago? So and that of course was sad, but I'm going to keep my eyes open for more records by Michel Delpech now after I've heard this nice compilation album. And I think that's it for this time. I've been talking now for almost 25 minutes, and my voice is starting to tell me to shut up. So I think I'm going to shut up and say I hope you all have a nice summer there, and see you soon again. And bye for now.